Josh, and I want to make sure we spend a good bit of time on this team because you've been putting out a lot of stuff about this team. And I just watched another clip that you put out about the Clemson Tigers. And there were a few things you said that I wrote down because I thought it was fascinating. Your post-spring top 20, you had Clemson number one.
Mm-hmm.
In a recent video, you talked about, this was a great stat, 21 underclassmen with 200 plus snaps last year, most in the country. All those guys are back pretty much. That's crazy. And then the idea of, can Clemson win a national championship again, as you were saying, 9 years from the first one? Would it be the biggest I told you so in the history of sports, college sports? Let's just start there. What are some of your overall thoughts on where the Clemson Tigers are right now?
I mean, okay, like I'm a big baseball fan. So I imagine somewhere in the 90s when the Marlins were an expansion franchise, somewhere in Miami, someone said, watch, this team will win a World Series. That's a bigger I told you so.
Sure,
Okay,
sure.
that person got to do that. But in the grand scheme of college football lately, I don't, again, when we're talking about the depth of layering and understanding of this sport, yeah, you could just watch Clemson win a title and, you know, to the casual like passerby, he may say, well, I mean, big deal. Didn't they win two of them before? Yeah, they sure did. It's an entire different galaxy.
Yeah.
As far as college football goes, entire different world. And between that time and this time, people, in some cases, including myself, have looked at Dabo's approach and said, I wish he'd bend 20 degrees. You know, I wish he'd bend a little bit more, have a little bit more flexibility. And he may have bent like 5 degrees, but largely he's stuck to his guns. He has a philosophy about how he's got a worldview. He's got values and principles that also extend beyond football, just to his life, that he applies to his program, which is the way any authentic coach should run their program, by the way. And he has adhered to them. And I've always been conflicted, as I told you guys a year ago, because I have maximum appreciation and respect for that. Even as I personally look and I say, man, I wish he'd do this, this, or this. But even if he disagrees with me, it's his program. Anyway, well, what if he wins a title? When people have been, at the very least, as vocal as me, and in many cases way more vocal than me, they just outright taken shots at him. They tried to undermine him personally. And look, Dabo Swinney's, when he's successful, he's not the best at bottling up his emotions. When he's failed, he's not the best at bottling up his emotion, which I also appreciate. I mean, if you're in this sport, you're like a Coke that just gets shaken up every week. It's okay to twist the top every now and then.
He's real. I mean, no one would say he's
right.
not.
That's
Yeah.
right. And people ask for coaches to be real all the time, and they're the first ones to try and take the machete to your shin when you are real.
Exactly.
So if they're hoisting a national championship trophy after the dust settles in Miami, I think is where the title game is this year, can you imagine the look on his face? Now, he's free to say whatever he wants to, but he would be well within his rights to just cut a full Stone Cold Steve Austin promo on all of college football, spike the mic. Don't just drop it. Spike the microphone. And then, you know, ESPN can bill Clemson. And he just walks off. He just walks up the tunnel. He goes Bo Jackson, but he doesn't come back. We just never see him again. He could do all this. Now, it's not a TV show, so it's probably not going to go that way. But he could, and it would be a really, really big story. And, you know, people had developed sort of the habit of anytime you present that, saying, yeah, but Clemson's not going to win a title. Okay, why? I keep asking, why? What is it? What's the hurdle? Where's the Goliath in the room? Goliath lost, by the way. Just biblically, let's
Come on.
But even if there was a Goliath out there, where's this like insurmountable foe across the landscape of college football? Everyone who's listed in the odds at the top of the boards starting a new quarterback, a bunch of them, I think I saw the top 3 the other day. It may have even been in this Clemson segment. The top 3 on the odds board right now are 82nd or worse in returning production. Not that returning production is the end-all be-all, but in a world of uncertainty, it means something. And Clemson's got a lot of it. And what I had not been able to get past with Clemson lately was their receiver room was nowhere near being comparable to that of which they won titles with. Well, now it is again. So it's not like the program became a poverty program. There were just deficiencies. Well, they filled those tanks again. So I think they're ready to make a run.
Yeah, I love what you bring up there, because I think the big 3 when Clemson's winning at the highest level is elite quarterback play, check, elite wide receiver play, check, and a defensive line that's NFL ready, check again. They have all three. And that, I think, is what is so exhilarating about this year when you look at all that coming back. Number one in the world in returning production and the things that they have there. Let's stay with Cade Klubnik for a second, because I think he's the best quarterback in the country. I think what we're going to see from him jump-wise, what we did from year 1 to year 2 as a starter, now year 2 to year 3, is going to be insurmountable. I think he's going to check every box and have that full understanding, and he has the weapons around him. What are your expectations for Cade going into this final season at Clemson?
It wouldn't surprise me if everything you just said comes to fruition. From the pole position, like from the starting gate, I would put him as the best quarterback in the country. Look, I was doing a semi deep dive yesterday as we're recording. I was just watching some random games. I watched the Clemson South Carolina game. So you would think to yourself, "Ooh, Clemson lost that one." That probably left a bad taste in your mouth, and you're going to talk Clemson the next day. Well, okay. If we're talking Cade Klubnik, I think a lot of people remember the last play in that game, the tip ball turnover, whatever. Yeah. Dude, some of those throws he made, what you would call 50-50 balls, I don't think are 50-50 balls. Right. Those are like 30-70 balls that not only Clemson makes the play on, but it's not like it was last resort, let's just heave it up. I got 3 guys in my face. It was, I'm doing this intentionally. Like, I trust those guys to go make a play. So you just try and extrapolate that forward, okay? Everything else being in place, everything else we just talked about being in place, having that kind of talent, and it's not one guy, you've got 3 potential 1,000-yard receiver types that you could see hitting that mark. Not all of them, but like any one of them or maybe 2 of them could do that. You cannot overestimate or like overstate how important it is in college football to have the kind of guy that when all else fails, you feel comfortable, it's either my guy or it's no guy. Ohio State probably feels that way about Jeremiah Smith, and I'm not saying it's apples to apples, but just in college football, like when you got good personnel elsewhere, to be able to do that with wideouts is phenomenal. If they can just have a threat running the ball and not turn into LSU last year, where you're top 10 passing, 100th rushing, if they can maintain balance, not in terms of statistics, but in terms of a defense's necessity to honor it. Man, that's everything.
Yeah, it really is. And KG, just to double down on the balance thing, balance doesn't mean 50-50, as you just alluded. Balance is if you go a light box, we can check to a run and we can execute at a high level. And I think at a minimum, that's what Clemson will be running the football, KG.
Yeah, the run game is probably the biggest question, I would say. And the other biggest question, because this is kind of what I do, Josh, I'm a little bit of a devil's advocate on this show, sometimes with Eric McLean about our beloved Clemson Tigers. But some people, we had Pat Forty on, who's a legend in the business. He asked who'd they beat last year. And I said, fair question. I'm in the stands for the Louisville game. It's tragic. I mean, you basically weren't competing with Louisville. You open with LSU. That's going to be a massive game from a brand perspective. The knock on Clemson over the past couple of years has probably been in the big games, they haven't shown up, which is what they were known for during the run, beating Alabama twice, beating the Goliath that was in college football. Does that concern you at all, Josh, that we haven't seen them win that big game? SMU, of course, in the ACC championship, but that big game as of late.
Yeah, you don't get credit for that. You only get the games you win. You were just supposed to win. Look, all seriousness, it's a valid point. Okay, so if you believe in the cyclical nature of this sport, we haven't used the term Clemsoning in a long time. But kids who are watching Once Upon a Time, a little over a decade ago, it was just the running narrative that Clemson's a good, solid program, fun home field environment to play on the video game, cool color scheme, colorful head coach, but they won't win the big games. They'll pop a nice 9-win, 10-win season on you, but they'll lose the big games. Well, then they didn't. And what happened is what we just talked about. Quarterback play elevated, receiver play elevated, line of scrimmage play elevated. All right, well, what you can't do is, number one, you can't have seen that already, bonus. But then number 2, believe in the cyclical nature of the sport and not believe that could happen again. I truly believe Saban in Alabama warped reality, time, space, and logic for everybody, because he made it seem like it's just supposed to get to cruising altitude. Nowhere else in the history of this sport has that happened. Even for elite programs, even for Alabama under Bryant, much less any other program. It's varying degrees of this. Okay, so what if that's all we're experiencing here, is a little varying degree of that? And my point there is, the Louisville game was a I mean, that was like a manhood check for the Clemson program last year, more so than any other game to me, because of the nature of the way they beat you. And you're superior in class athletically, and you're by far the second best team on the field that day. And so, like, I'm thinking to myself, it's a fair criticism. But I could have said about that. I could have said that about them in the past, right before they won a national title, or right before they went to a national title game. It's you could rinse and repeat that with a bunch of different teams. You don't do it until you do it. So I don't just. Sometimes it's better to tear the rearview mirror off the bus than to live in the rearview mirror when it comes to trying to, predict what's going to happen in the sport.
Yeah, I completely agree with you, and think it is. Things happen for whatever reason. And a big reason, I guess, that I am so confident in them this year is that defense is going to be what it's supposed to be. Now, they made a change, and that was difficult, for Coach Swinney, I'm sure, because you bring in a guy that you put your name on. You put a lot of trust in, and it just didn't work for whatever reason. I think there's a handful of that, but now you've got a guy, and you've got a couple of guys. This defensive coaching staff is extremely experienced and extremely dynamic in the things that they do. And they've got dudes everywhere. What are your biggest, I guess, pointers or keys that defense will be drastically different this year?
I just hope their ability to. You remember when they were at their best, them and Bama, and when Kirby got to Georgia were the only three teams in the country that were consistently stopping the run with 4, and it made it so hard to put together sustained drives on them, because they had the kind of personnel that let you play both ways, whereas everyone else out there is having to choose to play one way or the other. And I just kind of wonder, like, going back to that Louisville game and just going back to a couple of times last year where you're running the ball on Clemson with way more efficiency than you should be able to run the ball on them if I got guys like Peter Woods up front. So that to me will be the big indicator, because I think everything else works downstream of that. So if they got that defensively, I'll feel good. And the good news about opening with LSU is we don't have to wait too long to find out. Not that that's the edge of a cliff into the world, but we don't have to wait too long.